Tony, how you doing, sir?
Doing good, man. Good to see you today.
Right on. You look great in front of that nice logo behind you. So let's go over some electrical questions or electrician questions that a lot of homeowners have when they're looking for someone to come either fix, upgrade, or if there's an emergency problem. And so here's some common questions that people have. And right now we're going to look at safety. And so question number one is it dangerous if an outlet feels warm?
If an outlet feels warm and it's not being used, you need to have a professional come out and check it for sure because no current's really flowing through it. It's getting voltage, okay, but it's not using any amperage, okay, which meaning that there's a problem with that receptacle. It could be the connection behind the receptacle. If there's no plug inside of that receptacle and it feels warm, I would definitely have somebody who knows what they're doing come out and take a look at it, pull the receptacle out, look and see what the problem is because it should not be warm. There's no usage going through that to keep it in simplified terms, and it shouldn't feel warm to the touch at that point in time. No. Now, if you've got a plug in there, I mean, really, even if you're running a vacuum or something like that, I mean, more than likely it shouldn't feel warm, but it could, but it shouldn't. Does it mean that if you're running a vacuum and you feel a little warmth there, I mean, I would not worry about it if I unplug the vacuum and in 5 minutes I come back and I touch it and there's nothing there, then yeah, you don't have an issue with that outlet. That vacuum may be pulling a lot of power, and that's what's creating the heat. So, for an example, if we are at somebody's home and we're taking an infrared picture of their electrical panel to look at heat sources, and we've got current moving through a breaker, we're going to notice that the temperature of that breaker and that circuit is going to be warmer than a circuit where there's not any power going through. So, yeah, I mean, and sometimes you can tell because of the heat signature of that particular breaker. You can tell what appliances are running depending on what breaker is at, and those are very helpful tools to have as well for an electrician to see what's going on with the heat that's being created by whatever usage you're doing.
Right on. I have two follow-up questions for that. So, and this might be a question that you can answer because it's more appliance ish. So sometimes I see like my iPhone, right? And I'm charging my iPhone with those little blocks and then aftermarket blocks and sometimes blocks from the actual manufacturer. And then those get so hot. Like you grab it and like, oh my gosh, that's hot. Like, is that a normal thing to have a hot box that's plugging into the outlet? Is it the issue with the actual plug, or rather the box that we're plugging in, or is the issue with the actual electricity charging it? Like, have you seen that, or has anybody asked you questions about that?
I look here, I like you. I charge up cell phone, I charge up, we all are charging some kind of device anymore. And a lot of that has to do with like depending on the density of what I'll say is the battery, right? So depending on how much we have to pack into that battery, that's creating resistance. Most of the things that you're going to see are only a few amps, right? They surprisingly get very warm. That's also why you see them on airplanes like, hey, if you've got any lithium ion batteries, man, do not put them up above your head in the stowaway luggage area. You want to keep those on your person because of the warmth. And I think a lot of that has to do with what we're trying to charge up and how slow it is charging that item because of the density of that battery, right? The more dense the battery is, the longer it takes to charge, right? So we're pushing a lot into a battery, creating resistance onto the circuit, and it does get a little warm that way. Just you want to monitor it. I mean, a lot of those cords, I mean, you're right, they get very hot. You don't want to leave things plugged in. You don't want to leave them overnight. But more than most likely, that's because of the battery. It's not because of the electricity that's going to it. It's the battery can't handle the charge. And that's where we have problems more so than having an electrical fire. We'll have a battery fire. But yeah, things do get very warm on trying to charge up our electronics. It's amazing.
Right on. So just be careful, monitor it. If it's
Be
not
careful,
made to be,
monitor it,
yeah.
unplug it. If it's not being used, unplug it, right? Don't leave a charger just It's called a vampire. So, you're using very little bit of electricity when you do those type things, just because they're not active working, but they may have a small pull on your electric, just, I mean, very, very minute. But yeah, you want to unplug it if it's not being used.
Yeah, it's so funny. I call it the boomers thing because it's not my generation, but I remember my parents going around and unplugging all the appliances. This is saving money. Does it really save money? Like, did Mythbusters bust that myth? Like, I was like,
Yeah.
Mom, Dad, are y'all
No.
crazy? Like, it's not being used. Why are y'all unplugging that? Like, is that really a
Yeah.
real thing?
Yeah, look, a toaster oven, no, it's not being used unless it has a little LED display on it or something like that. But yeah, that is true, right? Now, I will say, that's the best way to protect something from a lightning storm or a surge, right? Is to have it completely unplugged. But yeah, you're not getting a lot of those, what I'll call vampire loads. If it doesn't have any kind of LED display or anything like that, it's not drawing any current power now.
Okay.
That is
Right.
funny though. But I remember those days too. Unplug that thing. Unplug that thing. Even microwaves back in the day when they were just big old heavy clunky things, you pull that cord right out of the wall. Don't worry about the clock on there. Pull that thing out of the wall.
That's awesome.
Boomers and grandparents, right? That lived through depressions.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Every penny counted back then.
amen. Still does, right?
Well,
It's
now
not. It's
this
not
day and
about.
age, every penny counts.
Amen. It's not about how many pennies you make. It's how many pennies you keep.
That's right. That's right. So the follow-up question to that was powering stations where we have 5 or 10 different devices to go into one plug. So is that fine as long as the outlet that we're using, or rather the extension cord, is built for that?
Yeah, so and those things are awesome. We keep them in a lot of our offices for our guys. And most of those are going to be 500 watt to 1,000 watt, and they may have like 10 slots for you with all these different cords and stuff. Those are fine to use. They may get a little warm, right? Because they're pulling some good wattage off to power up all these devices. But yeah, those have really grown in popularity just because of all the charging stations we need around the house. We've also installed a lot of outlets that actually have C-type ports and USB style ports along with the outlet, right? So you still have two outlets, and sometimes you can have two C ports, or sometimes you might want two USBs to C, what have you. But yeah, those are very popular as well. That's another avenue to have for your charging stations, along what you were talking about with having like a 10 port, 15 port charging station. But yeah, they're all legit to go into a 15 amp receptacle for sure.
Yeah, they're not cheap either. They're expensive.
No, they're not. And here's the other thing, like everything that has a plug on it, right? That plug tells you what type of outlet it can be plugged into. For example, most plugs we see have two straight prongs, right? And then they have the grounding terminal at the bottom. If you have to plug something into a 20 amp, okay, a 20 amp receptacle is going to have a horizontal line in one of the outlets. It may have a horizontal as well as a vertical, right? So it kind of look like this on one side. So if you have a 20 amp receptacle, the only thing that's going to plug into that and be worth 20 amps, like the appliance, is going to have a horizontal prong on it to fit into that 20 amp. So they figured that out a long time ago, and thank the Lord they did, because otherwise we'd overload every single thing in the world. We wouldn't pay attention to the small little writing of what's rated for what. So somebody before us had a lot of forbearance and knowledge that we don't care. We're just going to plug it in and see if it works.
That brings me to another question. Why do some of those prongs, they're the same, and then some are fatter than the other? Why is that?
Right. Some are the same because polarity. Okay, polarity, positive, negative, just to keep that easy. Not that we really have any negative polarity, but just to keep that easy, like positive and negative. Okay, so if we don't have one of the prongs a little wider, so when we wire up a receptacle, okay, we have what we call a hot and a neutral going to that to complete the circuit. And this is going to get kind of technical, but we want to make sure that all of our outlets are the same way, because let's say that we wired them up backward. We've got a white wire and a black wire crossed. Okay, now we've got a problem. because not everything in the circuit may be the exact same way. Okay, so we may have, I don't know, 10 receptacles on the same circuit, but if one of those is reversed, okay, where we wired the receptacle incorrectly, right? So now the fat part of your plug is going into the wrong wire behind the receptacle. Well, now we've crossed our wires. You're going to have an issue there because we reversed the polarity and it could burn the appliance up that you're plugging into it. A lot of times when you just see two prongs, no ground, it really won't matter to whatever's being plugged in. Let's think of a table lamp. Okay, a table lamp's not grounded. All we're doing is creating resistance and a filament in that light bulb. Okay, if we flip that plug over one way or the other, it doesn't matter because it's going to that filament in the light bulb and creating resistance there. So it doesn't matter about the polarity because flipped over, we still have the same resistance going in on each side. And that's not going to hurt anything.
Wow, that's good. That's good information. Yeah, I was wondering like why they have this, but now I know.
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. Well, that was one question that came to three.
yeah.
That was good. Why do I smell something burning but can't find the source?
Well, that's a great,
Could be
tough
anything,
question there. It
right?
could. It really could be anything. Now, I've heard of receptacles smelling like dead fish, and that's because there's an issue there. Maybe the phenolic plastic inside of it's getting too hot. I would tell you, if you smell something burning, I mean, we have to use some common sense here. I'm not telling people to just automatically call 911 and get a fire truck out there. They need to do a little bit of diligence, right? I mean, do they feel any heat anywhere? Do they just smell something burning? Go investigate it, right? Especially if there's no flame or anything, go investigate the issue. Turning breakers off is just maybe one of the ways to troubleshoot to see if there's an issue. But it could be multiple things, especially inside of a house. I mean, yeah, electricity is going to create heat if there's a problem. Okay. But I mean, it could be from maybe an appliance is going bad, like a ceiling fan motor, something like that. I mean, we have a lot of things inside of our home that won't create a fire and you could smell the burn, right? And it could be just from plastic getting overheated in something and it's going to extinguish itself. A lot of things that we have in our home are thermally protected for that very reason, right? So like if you've got an old can light, right? The old recessed lighting in homes, they're thermally protected as well. When they get too hot, they cut off, right? They're going to cut that electricity off to stop the bulb from overheating or creating an issue from the can actually getting too hot. And those have gone, we don't really even install what they call old high hats anymore. Everything's LED and disc lighting and, it's surface mount or it's even slightly recessed into the ceiling. But you've got to take your due diligence. If you smell something burning, you just need to go investigate it. Call a neighbor, call somebody else to come help you figure out what's going on. And if you do think it's an electrical problem, right, then yeah, I'm not saying don't ever call an electrician, call an electrician. If it's got the hair on the back of your neck raised up from you smelling something burning and you're that concerned, by all means, call 911. I mean, I would much rather err on the side of caution than being, well, I don't think it's anything. I'll just call an electrician who get out here tomorrow. No, I mean, like if you think it's serious, then get a professional out there. A fire department's going to tell you to call an electrician if they think it's something that needs to be investigated by an electrician for sure.
Hold on. I have a follow-up question. So, where I live is a salt air climate. And we had those hanging lights around our front yard, like the outdoor lights that have those bulbs are very popular that people
Yeah,
get. And they're
like
meant
the
for
cafe
outside.
lights.
Yeah, like it's black, and then you got the bulbs, the
Yeah,
plastic bulbs. I
cafe
think it's
style.
usually it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we've had it for about, I would say 2 years or maybe 3 years. And we were eating dinner, and all of a sudden something caught my eye, and I saw it was on fire.
Oh
And
wow.
and actually, you know what? It caught my eye. It didn't register to fire, but then someone else says fire, fire. So I had to go out there and unplug the light, and then obviously knock the bulb down to where it was stone, where the front patio was, and then obviously the fire went out. So like those things are rated for outside. Like now, the way I hung them was like on a nail, and then there's little holes where you can kind of hook up. That's
Yeah.
like surround it with rubber. I didn't use that part. I used probably the part where the wire was, and maybe that metal nail kind of burned through the or whatever, wedge
Yeah.
into the metal to create a fire. I don't know. Like, how did that fire start? Are those safe? Is there proper ways to install those things? Should I hire somebody, a professional, to go hire those things so that doesn't happen? Now I freak out because I want to do it in this new house, but that freaked me out. And I had those things on a timer. So every time at 7 o'clock, they would come on if we're home or not. And so we had not been home. The house could have caught on fire because it was right underneath the patio and it would have hit the roof. Where did that go wrong?
Yeah. And man, those things are so popular. And I've got some in my backyard too, and I love them to death. Right. But more than likely, the installation instructions on that you did not read, that you just went ahead and hung it how you felt like it should hang. Okay. Those are extension cords and they're rated to be outdoor. Okay. I say this very carefully because extension cords are not rated to be permanent. Okay. The cords on those are more for a permanent style installation, but the insulation on those jackets, Daniel, when you lay it on top of a nail, okay, and they're pretty heavy. That's not aluminum, so it's copper wire running around the length of that cord. 48 feet's typical. You see some 24 footers. And so remember, a lot of people don't know this either, but electricity does have micro vibrations in it. It's current moving inside of that wire. And tap that with, you're in a salt air environment. Not that it has anything to do with the jacket of that, but it has something to do with the nail. Okay. Unless you use the stainless steel nail, that nail going to get a little bit of rust on it, even underneath the jacket of that wire. Right. So the wind blows that cord a little bit, it just sits there and rubs, and you've had it there a year or two. I don't know. But yeah, eventually that jacket's going to give way. You're going to create an arc right there. You're going to have an issue. Now, should that have triggered a circuit breaker? More than likely, yes, it should have, because you had the reason there was a fire is because something arced out. And look, in a salt air environment, those are probably LED. Now look, there's some real old cafe style, that used what they call an S7 style bulb, very low wattage, about that long. With the base, they may be about that long. If you had that style and I mean, aluminum oxidizes in salt air, you could have had an issue with that, right? But everyone that I see now is all LED style. So their connections there are definitely hidden. They're waterproof. But the little hole on top of the bulb, that's for what they call a tie wrap, okay? So where you had that nail, I would recommend running a steel line, stainless steel in your environment for sure. And that's what you attach and hang those cafe lights to, is the steel guide wire. And you use a tie wrap for that, keeping all the weight onto the tie wrap instead of laying on that cord.
There you go. I made a boo-boo.
Okay? Look, I promise you this, you're not the only one who's doing that, but they are made to hang. If you see a commercial installation and they've done it right, you'll see there's a cable above that we call a guide wire that everything should be hanging on.
Okay. Now I know. So I'll think about that next time I install it, because that freaked me out. Whoa.
Oh, yeah, man, I'm sure it did. And I would also tell you to make sure that your tie wraps are outdoor rated, right? UV rated. Most of the time, those are black. Black usually means outdoor rated, clear is indoor, typically.
So if you're listening to this, install it correctly.
That's correct. Read the instructions just one time. Make sure you're doing it right.
Right.
But that concerns me that you didn't have, that circuit breaker should have tripped.
Wow. Well, that house has some electrical problems. Just leave it there. All right, let's get to the next question here. Can extension cords be used permanently? Which is, you kind of, answered that, but
look, no, you cannot use an extension. The extension cords for permanent installations. You can't do it. They're not protected. The jacket on them is not rated for safety, right? They're a trip hazard. And honestly, they're not new electrical code. And I know a lot of people don't follow that individually, but they present a big tripping hazard, which also creates a safety hazard. If somebody trips on that cord and it pulls, maybe it pulls the socket out of the wall, maybe it bends the prongs, it breaks inside the receptacle. But the jacket of that cord is not rated for it to not be used. It's only to be used in a temporary application because of the jackets. It's not a protected wire, right? When we have and here's the other thing to that. If you think about it, on the electrical side, all of your wiring in your home is behind a wall. It's attached to a stud with staples, okay? So it's protected. And so that jacket on that cord is the same thing. It's not protected, and it needs to be protected just like we protect what's behind your walls by using the wall to protect it. We use stud guards so that things can't penetrate that. Just they're not made for that. And here's the other thing. Most of the time, extension cords get overloaded because they're a lighter gauge wire, right? You can buy big extension cords. They cost a lot more, and sometimes they're cost prohibitive. So people get a smaller conductor, a 16 gauge or a 14 gauge, and they get overloaded. They get real hot, and they can cause a fire as well. So if you're using it for a permanent thing, let's add an outlet the right way so that you don't need to be running a cord across a room or using it for an extended amount of time.
Yeah, so almost like if you have a living room, oh honey, I think a lamp would be great there. Don't run an extension cord underneath the couch so you can find an outlet to put in that corner. Just don't put the lamp there because that extension cord is not meant for that.
Correct. Now let's talk about some of those smaller type extension cords. Now it's a lamp. Okay, if it's an LED lamp, if it's a 40-watt bulb, if it's a 60-watt bulb, if it's a 100-watt bulb, right? Typically, you're running a table lamp on that. Anymore, we're using LED bulbs that don't even draw 1 amp. Okay, that's not going to be an issue for that cord to be 6 foot going to a table lamp behind the couch. I'm not saying you need to add an outlet down the wall for that. I'm just talking about more of your heavy duty extension cords that you're really using you might have an appliance plugged in somewhere in the house that draws a lot more than that 3-watt LED bulb that used to be 100-watt LED, 100-watt incandescent, whatever. If you're using that extension cord for something that's permanent, then we need to get, and I'm not talking about a light bulb, I'm talking about an appliance. Then let's talk about getting the right receptacle over to that, right? So let's say I have an air conditioning unit, right? That's a heavy load, that's a window unit, and it pulls a lot of power, and I just don't have a receptacle anywhere near this thing, but I'm going to run an extension cord for it. Not a good application, right? That's pulling a lot of power. Let's put a receptacle underneath that and use the cord the manufacturer gave us. Usually those are going to be 6 to 10 feet. We can put an outlet within 6 to 10 feet to handle that load. It may even need to be on its own dedicated circuit, right? I mean, refrigerators are on their own dedicated circuits now because of the size of, heck, some of the refrigerators anymore are insanely big and they require a lot of amperage, right? So same with a window unit. Don't run those on an extension cord. Let's get an outlet and let's be safe.
Right on. I like that. What should I do after a power surge?
Well, we have power surges every day. You have them from your utility. You may have a surge from an appliance starting in your home, but you have power surges every day. Like let's say maybe you had a big power surge. Obviously, something led you to think, hey, I just had a big power surge. Maybe your lights really dimmed very low for something that seemed abnormal. Okay, let's go around and check things, right? Usually electronics are going to let you know if they got any damage from a power surge because they're going to malfunction and they're not going to perform correctly. Sometimes you'll have the new style circuit breakers are electronic. They have electronic componentry in them, and they are going to, they may trip. They may not reset because something in the electronics is wrong. Maybe you've lost some electronics somewhere to give you an indication of a power surge, right? There are things we can do called power surge protectors, right? That we can put on your home that are going to stop incoming power surges from the utility. We usually put those at electrical panels. We'll put them by your HVAC units, right? And new HVAC units, they don't really create power surges like they may have in the past because of energy efficiency now. Whereas in the old days, we would have a compressor for an air condition. When it needed power, it would really suck up all the power it could get and use a lot at one time, just, really slam it to it for the electrical. Now we ramp it up, right? So it's a slower increase on the electrical usage. And once it peaks out, it's going to drop back down. Old AC compressors are just bam, they really sucked a lot of electricity up to keep it layman's terms. And you would see a lot more of maybe a power surge being created from that. So a lot of times on your sine wave, electrical wave, you're going to see if you have a surge, okay, that's a spike on the wave. And a lot of times you're going to see the dip on the other side of that. It may not be exactly exactly symmetrical to the spike, but you're going to see a little dip there as well. But again, we have surge protection products. I always recommend having a whole house surge protector on your home. You want to protect your HVAC equipment, so very expensive. Pool equipment, very expensive. And then on your electronics, right? Your TVs, maybe even you may even look if you've got, refrigerators now $5,000-$10,000. Not that I have one of those, but people do. May not be a bad idea to put a surge protector on that. They're called point of use surge protectors. They're the plug strips. Just make sure that's what it's for, right? Some strips are a circuit breaker strip. Some are surge strips, right? Always save your receipts. Always save the warranty information on that. That is your only way you will ever get reimbursed on their warranties, is if you have all of the documentation, period. Do not think that they're going to send you a check for 10 grand without you having your receipt, without you having the warranty information, etc. So it's always good to have surge protectors all over the home, especially if you live in a lightning prone area, right? It may not prevent all the damage, but it's going to help. And anything at that stage is really what you want to do. You want to help the cause.
Right on. That's good. Okay. So the next question I have for you is, should I buy a portable generator or whole home generator?
Hey, great question. I get asked that all the time. I usually ask a few questions. Number one, why do you want backup power? What do you want backup power for? What appliances do you have to have run in a backup power situation? If they tell me they need their heating, or if you want to power up your AC, then you need a whole house generator, not a portable. A portable could very easily damage the most expensive appliance on your house because it's a gas engine and it is much more of a variable speed. When other items are plugged in, you can hear them bog down on a portable if you've ever had any experience with them. And another question I would ask is, do you mind going to the gas station and loading up on gas cans? Well, they also make tri and triple fuel options now for your portables. Okay, so they make them gas, they make them with propane, and they make them with natural gas. But regardless, how do you like that? Do you want to go out? Do you want to be worried about being able to refuel those? If you have natural gas, then it's going to be connected directly to a natural gas line. But if you're going to keep it simple and we're going to run a gas powered portable generator, and you don't mind going and getting gas, and you don't mind the cranking those units up to make sure that they're ready to go, right? Like it's not something you want to set in the garage and forget about it until the next hurricane season or the next storm season. You need to keep exercising those because quite honestly, a spark plug could get fouled up. You may have some issues with ethanol and non-ethanol gas. So a portable is very affordable, right? It's affordable backup power, but it comes with that. Those are some of the cons of it, right? We've got to roll it out. We've got to plug it in safely, right? So we're going to want to put in an interlock kit into the house to make sure that we can easily do that. And so that's going to use a cord that may come with the generator. It may not, but they make specialty cords. Okay. And that way, you'll have to use a cord for that. Otherwise, you hear people say, well, man, I'll just plug it into my dryer. Well, the problem with that is that means you've got a live cord end with prongs that's delivering 240 volt with a power unit behind it. That if for some reason you tripped, you fell, that thing hits you somehow. All right. Let's say you fall and you put it into the ground and you fall right on top of it. You're still going to get zapped. We call those dead man cords, okay, because that's an instant way to be shocked. And when you have a generator like that, it's more than likely going to kill you very quickly. So we always recommend doing it the right way. We want to put in what they call an interlock kit in your electrical panel, which is going to stop anything from going to your utility crew guys. Okay. If you want a portable, it's a great thing to have because of the price point. Okay. You can get in, you can buy portable generators probably anywhere ranging from $800 to $2,000, maybe give or take a couple $100 here or there. We put in a portable an interlock kit for your electrical panel, which basically makes sure that that main breaker is turned off and energizing the breaker that your portable generator is plugged into. And then you can change anything, turn anything on in your home, except we always recommend do not turn your HVAC on. Do not use a portable for HVAC control. A whole house generator, that's for the people who, one, may not be able to move a portable generator around their home. Okay, so if you've got some age on you, or if your husband's not going to be able to do that, or if you're a female and you can't do that, you have to take that in mind. But a whole house is going to do everything automatically. Okay, it's getting its gas from either liquid propane or natural gas. It's fed in automatically. Power goes out. We're putting something on the side of your house called a transfer switch. It's going to make sure everything transfers safely for the utility and for you to have power in your house. Utility power cuts back on. It's going to turn the generator off. Some manufacturers that may take 20 minutes for a cool down. It may take 10. It just depends on who that manufacturer is. So everything has its pros and cons. I would tell you to call an experienced company like Mr. Sparky and find out what would be best for you. We can help you with either. We install hundreds every year of both the portable interlock kits for portable generators, and we install the same for your whole house standbys. We're very knowledgeable. We service everything we install. So, just call a professional, ask questions, man. That's what we're here for. I'm happy to talk to people about what fits them best and give them the best solution at their best economical price. I mean, that's what it's all about, what fits you best and what makes sense. If you live in a place that doesn't have a lot of outages, then by all means, get a portable generator if it suits you. If that's not convenient, you can always get a whole house standby. It's just a lot more expensive.
Right on. That's good. What size generator do I need for my house?
Another great question. To properly figure out what you need for your house, again, it starts with the conversation. What are you looking to run for backup power? We already have determined that you want a whole house generator at this point in time. So what do you want to run? With the generators today, we can manage every load in your house just about. And we want to manage the large loads, which can help determine the size generator you need, right? So you may get a company that comes out and just eyeballs your house and says, you need a 24,000 watt. You need a 20,000 watt. We may be able to get away with a 13,000 watt. It just depends on what you want to run. So we want to do a load calculation based on the homeowner's priorities, and that will help us determine what size fits them best. There's a lot of companies out there that are going to sell you the biggest one, whether you need it or not, because that's the easiest thing to do. They'll walk up, look at your house. They don't really look at any of your loads. They may not even ask you a question other than where's your gas source and where would you like the unit. Our guys are going to come in. We're going to thoroughly investigate, number one, what's your gas source? Where does that need to be? We're going to then look at your appliance loads. If you have natural gas at your home already, you've taken care of one of your largest electrical loads because primarily you're heating everything with gas, not electricity. You're already heating your stove, you're heating your home, which may not be applicable if it's storm season. It may be very warm, but that's still a large load that the generator should be able to run if you have inclement weather and it's cold. Okay. So that's definitely a consideration. And then you're heating water, typically with gas. If you have gas to your home, that allows you to have a lot smaller of an electrical of a whole house generator, because we've just eliminated a lot of the big loads that the 24,000 watt, the 26,000 watt, or even a 20,000 watt require to start up all of those loads, even on a managed system. So it really pays to have a contractor come out who knows what they're doing. Do they have partners for gas, right? Like we're able to do turnkey generator installs because we're also we have a license to work with natural gas. We can upgrade gas meters, etc. And we're a good partner for our local gas utility because of that. And electrically, we know what we're doing on that side of it as well. So again, it just pays to talk to people who know what they're doing. If you have a guy eyeballing everything, he could be overselling you on a size you really don't need. And when you start looking at the kilowatts or the wattages of generators, every time you go up in size, so does the price, because the generator itself gets more expensive the bigger that it is. So we want to keep that footprint small. We want to put in what you need and make you happy. So it pays to deal with people who know what they're doing, who are experienced. If a guy's put in one or two, let's talk to companies that have put in hundreds, if not thousands. And we're one of those companies that have, and we service everything that we install.
I have a question, follow-up question on that. So when we install a generator, is there any maintenance per year to make sure it works? Is there anything that it like alarms me and say, hey, this is broken? Like, should I service it every year even though it doesn't get used? Like, what's the maintenance like on a generator?
I've also heard that the generators are called the next appliance, right? So everybody's going to want one. We've got a failing electrical grid going on around the country with no investments. And so you see a lot more power outages and issues with our power grid quality and just maintaining.
And these data centers are going to take all the energy.
Yeah, well, there you go. And while they're pumping out data, we'll need our own backups. But yeah, you have to service them every year, right? It's a gas appliance, even whether it's natural gas or liquid propane. It's a gas appliance. And gas demands that you should have that inspected every year because it's natural gas or propane gas. Heaven forbid we have a gas leak. But we also want to make sure that these things are running when we need them to run. So yeah, we have a maintenance plan for our clients. We recommend that they get maintained every year. They do operate all year round even without you needing them, right? So they exercise, and that puts a little bit of time on them. They all have oil in an engine block, so that's also important to make sure. Make sure that that's getting changed, just like you would for your car. We're going to look at your spark plugs. The vibration of those can also cause things to get out of whack, and not run as smooth as it should. So your valves may get out of sequence there a little bit. We want to make sure that they stay in sequence for a smooth running generator, which is going to extend the life. And we're also going to polish the outside and wax it because, when the exterior goes, those are expensive to replace. You may have a great running engine with no exterior because it's a rust bucket or what have you. We always tell everybody, look, you take care of that just like you would a car. We're going to put a coat of wax on it every time we come out to help make sure that the exterior lasts. There may be a warranty on a generator, but that doesn't mean they're going to warranty the exterior because they can't control that environment, right? Could be a salt environment, could get hit with water from your sprinkler systems or what have you. So you want to make sure that whoever's taking care of your generator is also taking care of the exterior as well.
That's good. That's a really good program. All right. So can I plug a generator directly into an outlet?
Another good question. So portable generators typically come with a lot of outlets on them. Okay. They'll typically most of them, they'll come with a 30 amp outlet. They'll come with a couple of duplex receptacles, which you can take one cord and run it to a refrigerator or to a freezer or to what have you. And that is not a problem with a portable. You're not going to get that on a whole house generator because all your outlets in your house are going to be available for you to use anyway. But on a portable, yeah, most definitely. You're going to run an extension cord, a temporary extension cord from the generator to whatever appliance you want. Or if you allow us to come in and put in an interlock kit, then you can use receptacles in your home without having to run a big long cord for that.
Right on. How long do electrical panels typically last?
A lot of variables there on that one, Daniel. Salt air is a killer because of the exterior, right? And also remember that things oxidize. Even if they don't rust, they may oxidize. A typical electrical panel, depending on the brand as well, right? So when I first got into the electrical business, panels were built to last. And most people would say they were built to last a lifetime just because the materials in them were heavier, they were made better, and there's a lot of truth to that. Now there's still some well-made products out there that I would tell you very easily, given the right atmosphere, the right room, the right conditions, they're not going to need to be replaced in a lifetime. Okay, there's others that are made that look, after 10 years you may not need to replace it, right? But you need to get them maintained and inspected every year. And here's why, because we talked about earlier, you have micro vibrations coming through in anything electrical, and you're going to want to tighten connections in that electrical panel. And usually that's when you're going to have issues is you have loose connections going to the electrical panel, right? So everything is subject to that. There's really not a right answer that, well, when do I need to replace an electrical panel? It is a visual inspection. Like I said earlier, we may want to use an infrared camera. I'm a high believer in an infrared camera because it sees what the human eye can't sometimes. But we want to take off the circuit breakers. We want to visually inspect those two bus bars in the back that are conducting all the electricity for your home. It is the heart of your electrical system. Your electrical panel is the heart. And when they get some age on them, you definitely want to. But we recommend you get an annual inspection every year for us to come in and do a tune-up. Let's tighten everything up. Let's pull on some conductors, make sure everything's tight. Let's make sure everything is connected well to the bus bar. Let's make sure your incoming wires from the service utility are tight, that they look good, that we haven't had any heat issues. Let's look at our grounding. Let's make sure that that's right. Let's look at our neutrals. Just a lot of things inside of there that a trained professional is going to be able to look at and identify some things that you may want. I don't recommend anyone taking off an electrical cover unless you're a trained professional, right? Because there are live parts behind that cover. And that's why you need somebody to come out with a trained eye. Hey, and if somebody tells you something that you don't know and that you don't agree with, it's perfectly fine to call another contractor in and get a second opinion, right? And so, if you don't know and they can't explain why you need a new electrical panel, then you need to get a second opinion. And with Mr. Sparky, those second opinions are always free. We're happy to come out and give you that second opinion. And sometimes, like we'll get a call from a technician and he'll want another set of eyeballs, right? And I completely respect that. And I'm glad that they do, just because sometimes it's helpful to have somebody with a lot more experience just come out and take a look. All of our guys are trained, they're professionals, but sometimes they may want another opinion from one of our guys, who may be a field manager or something like that, to come out and take a look and just say yes or no, or maybe we need to replace the circuit breakers because they're 30 or 40 years old, right? That's completely understandable to replace those. How often have they been exercised? Before I was with Mr. Sparky and we were in a much more industrial environment or heavy commercial, you get into some of these large circuit breakers that haven't been turned on or off in 30 years, go try to turn that sucker off when you need to. It's stuck. Okay. I'm not saying that the residential style will be that way, but look, how old should they be, right? Like we recommend upgrading circuit breakers probably after 10 to 15 years, just because they don't get a lot of exercise. They're not sitting there turning them on and off. And so it's a good thing to think about and get a peace of mind for that. And a lot of circuit breakers have been updated now to be much more safer with the combination arc faults. GFIs have been improved, right? Some manufacturers make an end of life GFI circuit breaker. Some never have, right? So for all you naysayers out there who just said, they haven't upgraded GFIs, you're wrong. They have, because they have end of life GFI circuit breakers now, and outlets were the only things that were end of life. And now you got circuit breakers that are end of life as well, which means that they can't be reset. So technologies have improved those all the way around.
Right now, yeah, I remember our house, we had flickering lights and it could have been all kinds of things, like plumbing, like through this, like, the wires or the pipes. Is there a wedge? Did the stud get pinched or something? But they determined that we need a new breaker box. And then they install the new breaker box and fix the flickering of the lights. Not that it
Yeah.
always fixes it, but definitely seen where getting a new breaker is going to solve some problems that people have. And
Yeah, that's right. Look, and I'm not going to sit here and say that we haven't replaced a breaker panel and said, that should fix the flickering lights. And it hasn't, right? Because our guy didn't do the right thing and he didn't inspect and go around and check that out like he should have. That is not a correct all to replace an electrical panel. But if you do have a lot of dimming and flickering of lights, I mean, you can identify that in an electrical panel very easily. It's troubleshooting 101. Sometimes you can even hear the arcing going on behind it. Like
yeah, I heard it like the sizzling. I'm like, whoa, that don't sound safe.
yeah, it's like a staticky sound, but it's creating heat back there. But, and that's why it's important to have a company that's going to stand behind their work. They're going to do the right thing, but they're also going to investigate it the right way. Electrical panels, not the panel itself, but a lot of times it's the circuit breakers that cause the electrical panels to go bad because they didn't have a good connection or the circuit breaker failed, like you were saying. And you can tell that on that circuit because the circuit may be dimming. But that could also be other issues with your electrical system as well, from the meter to the utility. There's just a lot of variables in there that you need somebody trained to come out, take a look, and diagnose it correctly.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, Tony. This is the time that we have for this session here. A lot of great information. I feel like homeowners should sign up for your school because you do such a great job with educating, articulating all these things, and we get to learn to be safe, and also save money by knowing what we needed,
Yeah,
to pay for our home. So thank you so much for your time today, and it was good to see
my
you again.
pleasure. Yeah, man, it's always good. It's always good. Appreciate it.
Okay, have a good night.
Take care, you too.